Welcome to the Self-Storage Lab. In today's episode, we delve into the world of third-party management with a special emphasis on branding and marketing. We'll uncover essential strategies like grassroots marketing, reputation management, and the invaluable role of word of mouth and referrals in growing your storage business. Joining us is Melissa Stiles, Chief Marketing Officer at Storage Asset Management. Melissa spearheads the development and execution of a comprehensive range of marketing initiatives, including digital marketing, social media, and public relations for SAM and its over 500 managed self-storage facilities. Known for her expert presentations at numerous industry events, Melissa is a true industry powerhouse. Today, she'll share her deep insights and practical tips on using both traditional marketing techniques and cutting-edge tools to enhance your brand and maximize market presence. So actually, before we begin, I wanted to start off, this is outside of self-storage and marketing and anything, but I was obviously doing some research on you, Melissa. And did I read this correctly that not only do you have a degree in business administration, but also a degree in Spanish?
That was my minor.
Your minor, okay. But so you did study Spanish. That's pretty cool. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, my actual degree is like in business admin with specialties in international and marketing. So
Nice.
Before I was with Sam, I worked for the World Trade Center for 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's awesome. Were you out in New York?
No, so our director of training was just talking to me about this actually like 10 minutes ago. So there's actually 330 World Trade Centers across the globe. Most of them, so I worked at the one in Harrisburg here in Pennsylvania, and most of them are small outreach, helping import and exporting to the local business communities there. But like 10% of them are the real estate, like you see in Baltimore, and Dubai's the biggest in New York City.
Fun fact of the day.
Rodolfo was asking about the Spanish stuff because he was like, we're going to record this entire episode in Spanish.
Let's go.
No, I know. I was like, let me preface it. It was a minor.
I'm about to start asking you questions in Spanish. Mason, take a step back.
Yeah.
We're about to.
It's funny because I haven't used it in so long that I can't, I can write it, but I can't speak it on the fly like I used to.
Yeah. But it's like riding a bike, where you can kind of understand things, read it, which is super helpful though. Still, specifically in storage. I feel like, I don't know, depending on where some of the locations are.
We just did some flyers and stuff in Spanish.
Nice.
So
See,
we'll do that.
Came in handy.
But I don't know if you feel like this, but when I was in Lithuania for 2 months, and so when it's not in an English speaking place that I'm in, I just default back to Spanish too. I don't know why that happened.
I can't empathize with that at all.
Sorry.
It's I don't know too much Lithuanian. Is that how you would say it? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Yeah.
But I was just I get that. I was just in Amsterdam, and kind of I don't know, the root of a lot of these languages comes back to that. So it's oh, interesting. A lot of similarities and all that. Cool. Well, all right. Diving into self-storage and all the goodies and fun facts. We have you here today because you're an expert in a lot of things, marketing, branding, and all the things that belong to that umbrella. So kind of starting off, when it comes to this umbrella term of marketing as it relates to self-storage, what would you say, high level, what does it all encompass as it relates to an operator's day to day?
Yeah, that's a good question, because there's a lot of tactics, right? And pieces that people want to pull out and place. But I think it's anything that is driving occupancy and attracting tenants, right? So that could be anything from, your grassroots local marketing to referral programs to all of the digital marketing. So your website, your reviews, your reputation program, your social program, influencer program. So anything that is really driving rentals, it falls under marketing.
Do you have any core principles that you'd say guide the marketing strategy that you have in place at SAM?
So core principles. So every facility is very unique. And so when you look at it, it's really hard to say like, this is your plan for every facility. But overall, I think it's targeting the intent of storage is usually the core principle. So when I talk about that, I mean, storage is not something that's an impulse buy. So I can't serve you an ad for it, 5, 6, 7 times like you could a pair of shoes, and then you decide that you need those shoes. But in storage, you usually have a need for it. So what we do is really go after where that intent lies. And so that could be, the simplest is Google search. So they're searching there. But then there's also places that we know trigger the life event that needs storage. So it's making sure that we have partnerships or geofencing ads or things like that around those as well.
I get a sense Rodolfo's going to get to say his favorite word in this podcast and at some point in time today, and that's exciting for him.
Maybe we'll see if I can. Maybe I can slide it in.
That's funny.
But no, that is true, right? Like thinking about self-storage as a product, it's not like people are, I don't know, searching for it all the time, and
right.
It is true. It happens. What is it? Is it like the 5 Ds or something? What is that again? People always joke around. The divorce, death.
Oh, divorce, death.
Dislocation.
I don't know. Dislocation. I always forget the other ones. I'm so bad at this. But either way, right? It's on a need basis, and it's always interesting to see operators, specifically, folks in your role, marketing, how to drive that need, or even take a step back, and it's not really to sell, but to educate your customers around, hey, when the time does come, choose us, right? Mm-hmm. We're the brand for you. And so I'm curious, like, to follow on that, what channels does your team mostly focus on whenever you are trying to, push this education and kind of branding as relates to SAM?
Yeah. So with brand awareness, there's, you're obviously your digital channels, right? So you want to have a good website, you want to have a good listings program. But I think what really helps with the brand awareness is still the grassroots marketing. So building, a positive reputation within the community. And that could be anything from sponsoring, a little league team to really making good partnerships with a few referrals with like realtors, apartment leasing complexes. Really building a couple key relationships is super helpful for that as well. So you have the local marketing and you have the digital marketing. And then I think the other piece too is signage, right? So a large percentage of our tenants all still come from driving by. They might search us online, but they've heard about us first because they drive by the facility every day. So making sure that you have good, clear signage as well. So those are kind of the 3 buckets I would classify anything that we do under as far as brand awareness.
That's awesome. I love the grassroots stuff. I'm curious, I'm going to ask one question, then I'm going to step back and take another question. Are there any unique things that you guys are doing from a grassroots perspective, that you've found works better than others? Like the softball thing is an interesting one, but I imagine that you're just top of mind for somebody when they need something. Is there other activities that you guys have found have worked really well in the past?
Yeah. So every one of our staffed facilities has to build relationships within the community. And the one that's, I think, the most unique and not really one that's thought about is funeral homes. So a large amount of our tenant base come from estate planning. And so, you have estate attorneys, but then you also have funeral homes, and you have a place that you could provide we normally do them non-branded, for instance, but, our deepest sympathies with you. Please enjoy 1 month of free storage. If you would need it, and putting those in the funeral home packets, that actually has been something unique, but different, but captures an audience that actually will need storage usually.
Yeah, it's and I imagine you have to be careful around the way that you present that. I mean, it's such a hard point in time in people's lives. I'm gonna take a step back really quick because, like, for me, marketing like is like this ever evolving like landscape of tools. Like, even most recently, like we've talked about, like generative search, right? Like, how does Melissa, like, who wants to be like a person that's on top of all the latest things, like, how do you think about staying on top of these like tools?
Yeah. You don't sleep. No. Uh, a lot of times, and I ask this of my team too. I ask them outside of storage, what are brands that you like? What brands do you follow, and what are they doing? And so, like, I remember when I first came to Sam, I'm someone who likes to do everything on my phone. I don't really want to have to go and talk to a person. So when I joined Sam 10 years ago, I said, why can't I like rent a storage unit online? Is there a reason? They're like, no, just figure it out. And so, just having
Epiphany
that,
moment right there for somebody.
yeah,
Have a website.
right. And like we were doing reservations, but there was no, like, you always had to go into the office. And I was like, I don't really want to go into an office, right? I just want to rent it and do my thing. So I think, that is first off is like looking at brands that I like and follow, and looking what they're doing. So like, and ones that, stick out, like what are some of like the airlines doing as far as those kind of things, and social, what are some of the trends, and those kind of fun TikTok things that we can apply to storage, right? Because storage is hard, it's space, right? And it's hard to differentiate yourself, and there's only a few ways you can in the space. So making sure that you're doing those kind of fun things as well and appealing to all audiences. So when that's the other piece of storage too, is that you don't have a target demographic so much. Anyone can use storage at any point in time. But for me, then it's like reading the Moz blogs, reading those SEM Rush blogs, just watching a lot of TikTok and YouTube videos too, and like following, people that I respect in the marketing realm. There's a podcast on CMO suites and those kind of things. So what I do think is important is that it can be overwhelming, especially in the digital realm where things are changing. So I think with anything, it's like taking pieces that you think can apply and trying not to apply everything that you learn. Obviously, when there's a Google update, you have to run with that, right? If you want to be competitive with search, but you don't have to do every trend. You don't have to do every single thing, but taking what you think will work and applying that in a way that suits your business and suits your storage facility.
No, I love it in general. Like, one, I'm not on TikTok, so like when I think of TikTok, I think of people dancing to the same song over and over again. But what you're telling me is that like they're like as a like in your day to day, like you can actually like learn marketing skills on TikTok. People are like showcasing like best practices, etc. Is there anything like recently that you've like identified with?
Again, I don't think it's not, for me, it's not like this CMO saying, okay, this is how I wrote copy, right? It's like following a brand I like and understanding what they're doing to attract. So like, we work with influencers, right? And so how the other people are using influencers has been interesting too, and how we can apply that. So I think that's something as well. And you just have to have that intuition to not like follow someone who's like, here's how you write a meta tag and here's how you do this. But, following things that you enjoy and then thinking about how you can apply that. So I don't know if I have a good answer for you, Mason, or entices you to get on.
No,
TikTok,
you're spot on though. I think like the idea of like, I forget the exact phrase, but it's the ability to take two completely like disassociated ideas and combine them in order to be something unique for your purpose. Like that's really where innovation and creativity comes from, right? And so like you're finding inspiration from the people that you're following, the brands that you're personally are interested in, and able to combine that and say, how do I use this for the thing that like I do day to day as a CMO in the self-storage industry?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're curating your own feed, right?
Right.
And to like this to use for creativity and inspiration. So I love that. To answer your question, Mason, I think dog content and outdoor content will get you to TikTok, especially if the dog is dancing. I think that would get you hooked.
We're getting somewhere.
So actually, you touched on a lot of things that we're going to need to like rewind to, but the latest one, influencer marketing, I had to know because you were one of the first, or probably the first person I heard speak about influencer marketing in self-storage, which is wild to me. In my previous life, I ran a media company, and I worked directly with influencers as a growth lever, etc. And so interesting to me hearing you speak about influencer marketing. So I'm just curious. You did say you're still using that as a strategy. How has that been so far? How's it been performing? What can operators learn, as to what to do and how to implement influencers into their strategy?
Yeah, no, that's a lot of good questions. We launched our first one in 2020, and honestly, our social media manager, who's now our reputation manager at the time, we were reposting an article where she mentioned how she uses storage for her vintage business at a local news station. So we were reposting it on that social media, and then saw that she was actually on TikTok with a large following, and had an idea of how we could like partner with her for that. So that was our first one, where she is already using storage for her vintage shop on a platform that she has a large following. And I think right off the gate, we got like almost 100 rentals in 7 states, like from that collaboration. And honestly, like that was our first one. We learned a lot, using a code with her to understand and that code working on the website, working with the call center. And so we can really track that. And we've tried some other ones that have not been users of self-storage. So they've been like outside influencers that we found that are like in the home renovation space or organization space. They performed okay, but our one that we're actually signed in, we're going to be doing our 4th or 5th collaboration with him. He's actually a tenant as well at one of our facilities. And he is a home remodeler, and he just does a great job. And he's out in Phoenix, and we've had people like on his Instagram right away say, I'm in Minnesota. Does Storage Sense have a location in Minnesota? And so like we've been able to jump in and be like, yeah, like, are you close to Hamel, Minnesota? We have a location there. So that's been really interesting. And we've learned, so if they're authentic users of storage, they understand, how they're using it and can relate to the audience. And that's been really good because they're actually showing their belongings in the storage. They're showing how they use it, and they're able to do it in a way that's creative and not just like, this is my space, but here are some applications of it. We've done some like local guide things as well. What we learned there is to work with revenue management, make sure you're offering a different special. So you can track it as well. So, making sure it's something really, really different for that channel and using the code. We've also done it too, where we had someone from, I think it's like Farmer Meets His Wife. It was a show. It was like a reality dating show. And he came to one of our ribbon cuttings. And so we've had like that kind of like that local influencer there too, where it wasn't just like on a TikTok or Instagram, but he was able to come and, brought some people to that brand awareness to that facility then too, because he lived close to that facility, and he came out to the ribbon cutting, which was cool too. So you can use it in a variety of different ways. It's just, I think the most important is if you find someone, and to do this, we just put a call out to our tenants and said, hey, are you an influencer? And so the first time we just said, hey, are you an influencer? And we got a lot of people that thought they were influencers and might be in their little circles. But the second time when we did it, we put like parameters, like they had to have so many users and so many views on their videos. But even when we did that call out and we got some smaller ones, we didn't realize that there were like a couple popular restaurants storing with us. And so we could do some cross collab that way as well. So you can do it on that.
Interesting.
On that level as well, where it doesn't have to be this huge influencer campaign that you think of on TikTok or Instagram, but could do some cross collaboration for like a micro influencer as well.
Yeah, it's like you're even saying not only individuals but other businesses that have a following.
Yeah.
It's
kind of like an extension of your team.
It's so interesting because this is the complete opposite almost of like where we started, right? Like we intent-based marketing, like for these like 5 Ds, right? But like this is like lifestyle marketing, right? Like, and I always feel like I'm that person because I store my camping gear. The reason I have it is like camping gear, right? It's like, I don't have this because I'm dislocated or like had a recent death. It's
Right.
like, I just want the stuff that I love there. And you talked about like vintage, art or furniture and people doing, dating farmers. I don't know, maybe they're
Clothing. Yeah.
this is like a small business side hustle. It's such an interesting like thing. We talked about a couple of things like attribution, specifically through like discount codes. Like when somebody's coming from one of these channels, like whether it be TikTok or, they're finding this influencer on, Twitter or X or whatever we're calling that platform these days. Are they landing on like your homepage, and like where are you tracking? How's that attribution changing? Like you're going, okay, they came from TikTok, they came from a specific source to our homepage, and then at the checkout, it's now being reattributed back to that influencer. Is that like, maybe talk to me about some of the dynamics around following somebody's journey to that in checkout point?
Yeah, that's what we're trying to achieve, right? Is that when they come from like the TikTok or Instagram video, that we are capturing them. But as you know, especially if someone doesn't have that need but are looking for it to more like this is the lifestyle, which I want to come back to that too. Is that, they might go to your site, then come back and then just try. So that's really where that code came in. So we give them a unique code that's usually like their name or something like that. And so doing that has been like the best way to attribute the rental, because we're giving them a discount that's not available on our website. So it's, something way different, plus maybe a free lock or waive an admin fee or something like that. That's different than our standard discounts that we would do that. And so that's a way to get them to enter that code so we can really track it and have accurate data around it. Or they tell the call center if they're calling in, or talking to the manager as well.
Are there specific channels like in that like acquisition funnel that like you think do the best job of like helping you guys attribute?
So as far as, not really, to be honest with you.
I figured that was the answer.
I wish there was. No, I was like, I wish that like that would be like the perfect, right? Because then you can attribute and have really good ROI on every single thing that you do, and you don't have the other thing too is a lot of these are around brand awareness, right? And that's really hard to track. So the best we can do is the code, right? And then looking at, we always ask for reports from them. So what was the engagement on their video from them? What was the views? And to start as well, when we engage in these influencers, we also ask about their demographics of their video as well, so we understand that piece and then can try to match up as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I guess like the question to pose on that is like measuring the effectiveness of marketing campaigns. It sounds like influencer marketing really, and maybe a lot of this marketing is just really about brand awareness, the touch points, right? Like the adage of it takes like 7 brand touch points before somebody makes a purchase. I'm sure that like plays true. I've driven by, a facility on the road. I saw them at the softball game that we talked about earlier. And then like my favorite influencer or something like that was talking about it. And then, when I have that need, I like top of mind, that brand pops up immediately.
Yeah. I read a stat somewhere that even when someone's starting their search for storage, so if they actually have that need or they decided that they want storage, like 80% don't rent or don't have a brand in mind. But then of that 80%, I think like 2/3 of them will rent from a brand that they've heard of. So that's really why it's so important to do the brand awareness on different channels. And so you capture those that don't have a brand in mind, but then when they see, Storage Sense, yeah, I recognize them from my realtor, I recognize them from the influencer, I recognize them from sponsorship, or I've seen their sign, that they choose you then as well.
I'm gonna unpack something that me and you have had conversations about, and a sneak peek for everybody listening to, like Melissa and I will be on stage at SSA in the fall, like talking about how data drives decisions. And so like I'm curious, like in some of this data that you're collecting, whether it be the attribution or channel attribution, like can you maybe give an example of a time where you've gotten something back, maybe we're surprised about it, and then changed the strategy based on that data that came in?
Yeah. Trying to think of a great example for this. A lot of the data we look at now is like ROI data, right? And so it's interesting because if you look at the ROI data, and this kind of ties to our brand awareness conversation as well. So if you look at the ROI data on local marketing, it's really bad, right? Like you're almost like, why do you want to do this? And so that's really hard to have that conversation then with owners about why do you want to do the local marketing when the ROI is bad, but internet ads is really good, right? And again, it's like you can capture that intent, by doing internet ads. And I'll also go into internet ads versus another channel as well, but you have to remember what each channel, what their actual, what you're trying to achieve with each channel, right? So your local marketing, you're going to be doing this, and that's kind of like in the old, I guess, you used to call it guerrilla marketing in some pieces too, right? Where you just go out and do it and try to spread away, and you might get one or two people back, right? But then internet ads, your click-through rates are a lot higher. So I don't know if that answers your question, Mason, as well, but I think it's surprising because you have to make some tough decisions, even though if the data doesn't tell you that you should be making that decision as well. So I think data is one piece of it, but then you also have to unpack it and look at what you're really trying to achieve. But then also, if you look at online aggregators, they spend a lot of money on Google Ads, but when we look at them, we're competing against them in the ad space a lot of times, but they're also a lower ROI for us as well. So when we're looking at, okay, we only have this pool of money for a facility, then we're making that decision to spend it more on our own ads and our own efforts there as well. So there's like different ways to look at it. And I think data is like a great way to have a place to start, but then you need to think how to, what you're trying to achieve and how to tell that story from that.
Yeah, it's like, with some of the local marketing, it feels like you're kind of shouting into the void, but the whole point of shouting into the void is just having the eyeball on the brand a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just maybe not directly attributable to a purchase 10 months later at some point in time.
Right.
So I think there's a couple things here to unpack too. Like I'm trying to also think about it as like how it might apply to smaller operators. So maybe like going the route of, I think you agree, you're kind of saying it, like marketing always gets the short end of the stick, when it comes to budgeting and spend. It's the marketer's role to kind of educate the executives or whatnot about the ROI and how to think about it. But it's so hard for some people to grasp because it's sometimes hard to prove that immediate ROI that people often want, right? And so as it relates to kind of the mid small operators, I guess like what type of insights should these marketers keep an eye out in order to plan and manage that marketing spend and be able to take that and educate the executives asking the hard questions?
Yeah, that's always tough. Because like you said, like it's really hard to attribute as well, because they could have, really heard about you from your ad, but then they actually came to you from, a different ad channel there. So it is hard. So it's really, it's about explaining the comprehensive strategy and really showing the types of tenants as well. So like back to the data piece as well. So we know we're looking at who are our most profitable tenants, who have our longest length of stay, and then using that then to form some of the decisions that we make. So for instance, moving was always number one as a reason why people store. And so it starts with asking those questions to your tenants, right? And really forming who your target market is. I'll back up onto that. So when they're coming to your website and they're checking out of your lease, you don't want to add steps, but adding one or two questions is really helpful for you as a marketer, right? Especially because of the different channels that they could come to you by. But asking some questions such as, why did you choose us? Why are you storing? And then you can pull out some demographic data, like you could use their address to see how far away they are from your facility, those kind of things to really form your strategy. But if we know that it's shifting from moving to, more of an estate planning piece, then you can shift your marketing strategy to that as well. So you know that the reason they're storing is because of estate planning, for instance. So that could mean that your estate planning marketing strategy to those attorneys in your area was really working, or you need to focus on that, more. So using the data to your advantage in that way is very helpful and showing the impact as well. So you have to start with kind of being able to gather that in a place as well, and not just using your normal attribution and your normal ROI, but using some customer data as well, I think is helpful.
That's so interesting. Like just going back to that too. I'm just curious, like how you first. I think the answer is like looking at the data, right? How did you get into estate planning, funeral homes being like a good channel for cross selling and partnerships? So my head is going like, how can operators start thinking about experimenting and leveraging like non-traditional channels that are somewhat oversaturated now, paid ads, search, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
How do they compete with the big guys?
Right.
Any suggestions there?
So I think it's starting thinking about life events or things that trigger storage, right? So it goes back to like that intent piece as well. And if you're right next door to an assisted living home, or there's an assisted living home down the street, forming that relationship first. Apartment complexes obviously are great as well, but really understanding in your area, what are kind of your centers of influence as well. So is it the hardware store, right? A lot of our tenants are now coming to us because they're renovating their home in a way. So, using the hardware stores as a referral source, or you can even use them, without local marketing, but geofencing around them to serve them some ads as well. And so that's a different space where you're not competing directly with one of the REITs on Google, but you can do it in a small micro influencer way that really concentrates on your market in a way that maybe the REITs can't just because of their size. So making those relationships with like the different centers of influence within your area.
Can you guys unpack that for me? From when you geofence something, are you saying that you could say, hey, I want to spend money on ads for somebody that walks into a very specific like building? Like, does it get down to like, hey, this hardware store? Is that what's happening when you're geofencing?
Yeah, and we just started experimenting with this, so we don't have like it's pretty new within the last 3 or 4 months for us too. But yeah, geofencing around a building, like even apartment complexes too. We're going to be launching one around a RV camping show that we are opening a brand new facility less than a mile away that's only parking. So geofencing around that show for that week during it and saying, okay, did you buy a camper or do you need a thing where you can store it down?
This is amazing. I didn't know that was even, is that through like Google? Like does Google allow you to do that specifically, or like
there's another platform.
Okay, cool. That's really cool though.
Yeah. And it's like retargeting too.
Sure.
As well.
Sure. Because you could, well, like in a strategy there, would you like have like take the RV campground piece? Like, would you be having like brand touch points that are physical? And then also doing the retargeting. I'm assuming that's happening in a digital platform somewhere.
Yes. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. We're experimenting with those kind of things. But again, that's like something on a very, very, local level that you could do that there's not a ton of competition quite yet on. Obviously the REITs are doing retargeting, those kind of things as well.
So you mentioned Storage Sense, so I kind of want to go back to just Sam as the brand, or I guess maybe even differentiating it a little bit, because correct me if I'm wrong, from my understanding of y'all's approach, it's very location/community driven. You mentioned community a lot in the conversation so far. And so instead of focusing on kind of like the corporate brand of, storage asset management, y'all focus on your clients' brands or Storage Sense. And I think I even was reading an interview where you said, like, I thought it was really interesting. Whenever you first got into the industry, there was a ton of facilities name AAA self-storage because that's how you got the first line of the phone book, to now a lot of facilities are naming their brands around like town, city, and self-storage, right? So I guess, can you talk a little bit about just the pros and cons of how just Sam in general has taken the strategy of really focusing on hyperlocal, and kind of how it differentiates between like an operator taking up the Storage Sense brand or just continuing on with their own brand? Can you just talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so that's been a great reason why a lot of owners choose Sam, is because we allow you to keep your brand. So if you came to us and you wanted, swivel self-storage, we would manage it as swivel self-storage, and we would do the same marketing tactics that we would do for like a Storage Sense. So Storage Sense I created in 2016. And so that was for someone who came to us and didn't really have a brand in mind. But now that it's become this like national brand, it has 290 locations I think on it now, as well, which has been pretty cool to see. So we have the option that if you want to be part of what feels like a national brand and have those synergies and those sharing. So like the influencer campaigns work really well with Storage Sense because we have so many locations around. So you can be part of that. Or if you are like, I just want to really focus and I'm really tied to my name, we'll manage it as your name as well. So it is market dependent and we make recommendations. So if you're in a more urban market, we probably would suggest, a Storage Sense where we have that domain authority and we have that SEO backing already that helps you rank quicker. Where if you're in a tertiary or secondary market, it might make sense to keep your location, name or your local community name if you have a good reputation, good reviews within that community as well. And we can just, you already have a good domain authority within that market as well to keep that brand. So we look at each facility and kind of make a decision and help the owner and guide them through, what our brand suggestions are.
Have you found it just, I guess, I don't know, like difficult to, with not only your clients, but these also channel partnerships, to really, as it comes to your employees, and even if you're managing the stores, your clients' employees, to train them up on your procedures? I'm assuming you guys already have like SOPs outlined and, it's kind of like a franchise essentially of opening up a store and this is what you need to do. Is that pretty dialed in? And what do you guys do to continue to, I guess, continuously improve on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces there, right? But in general, there's like SAM standards, right? And that's what we built the platform on, is the storage asset management standards. And then we will put the brand, whatever brand you choose on it. And obviously within them, there's some pieces that you might want customized or, those kind of pieces. But all of our SOPs are the same across. And our hope is that you would go to, if we manage a Storage Sense in the market and we also manage, a different brand in that market, that they would feel the same because they're a SAM managed store. And it wouldn't feel, like one is better than the other, that everything is on the same high level and excellence customer service. The website's easy to use. They're doing the same exact procedures at every store, regardless of the brand. You just have some advantages of being on the Storage Sense brand, mostly on the digital side, and maybe some cost sharing as well if you're in a market where there might be multiple.
I can go a completely different topic, but Mason, before I do.
No, go for it. I was going to
not completely different.
Ask about reputation management going forward.
Do that first.
I mean, I just know that, Melissa, like a lot of times when I hear you speak, it's around reputation management. And so like a lot of this is, we've spent a lot of time talking about brand and just creating an identity in the community. But a big piece of that today, I think, is people going to Google, right? And going, show me facilities near me and then doing what we do on Amazon, reading reviews. So maybe like talk a little bit about like how you guys think about review attribution and reputation management as a whole, and then we can kind of nerd out a little bit around that.
Yeah, it's a big piece of our marketing strategy and our operational strategy. We know the importance of it. First, it's a factor for Google, especially on the local pack. So it's important for that. But then, like you mentioned, Mason, it's the psychology behind buying as well. You want to buy from something or lease from somewhere that you feel is a trusted brand. So getting those reviews is a way to do that. A lot of times they're visiting those reviews and reading about you before they even look at a photo or come to your facility, right? So they're painting a picture for the tenant of what your facility looks like. And unfortunately, in our business, there is a route where we get a lot of negative reviews with, the auctions. That's just part of the business. And so when I talk about reputation, I talk about not only having a really good way to solicit those reviews, but having a good way to respond as well. So making sure, for positive ones, you can use AI and those kind of things. But for your negative ones, we have like an action ticketing system where every negative review goes into operations, like the district managers expected to follow up on that negative review and ensure that we're talking to the tenant and making sure that they feel like they're being heard. And then, you can't ask them to change the review. That's against Google guidelines. We never do that. But hopefully having that conversation changes their opinion on us. And at the same time, then we're also answering that. And we're not, saying anything negative towards that customer, but making sure that we're very showing that we're compassionate and we care and that we're a real brand as well in all of the answers. So I think, we ask for the review at the time of lease. That's the happiest that the customer is going to be. You just solved their problem. So we have different ways to do it. So the managers have the ability to send a text right there while they're either in the office or on the phone or just came in online. They can send the text as a follow-up with the link right to the review. It also goes in an email where we're giving all of the information about the facility and then ask them to leave us feedback as well for that. So there's at least, if it's like a drip campaign too. So if they don't click on any of those, it goes to a third step, right? And then we'll let it go from there. And obviously QR codes around the facility asking for the reviews too. But what we found as well is it's part of the manager's bonus program as well, because we just find reviews are so helpful. It's, part of the SEO strategy. It's also part of winning and attracting tenants. So it's part of their ability to bonus as well for the manager. So, and then we can nerd out about how we use those reviews in other ways.
Yeah, the first question I have is like is there one, I think it's really important to like note that negative reviews are not like a bad thing. I think it really is the appearance of being able to respond appropriately to those, right? It gives you an opportunity to explain yourself and show that empathy, right? And like, take it outside of storage and go into like, Amazon or even like restaurant reviews.
Restaurants.
Like when I go read restaurant reviews, like, and somebody's like, I don't know, you gave me 2 sizes of spoons or whatever it is, and they're complaining about like, the too many spoon options or whatever. It's like, okay, like that doesn't apply to this. That sounds like a great restaurant. I'd love to have the options of spoons. That was a really bad analogy, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's like,
I agree.
That I had a bad analogy.
Yeah, that's all I want to say.
Yeah, I'd like all the spoons, please. A peanut butter spoon, a jelly spoon, and then all the spoons for $0 too at the same time. I'm curious, like, is there like a balance, like, or like a point of inflection for a new facility of like, hey, I'm trying to get to some point where like now, like after that, maybe there's not as much return in the early days, like of number reviews, positive reviews, a specific star rating?
So there's a couple different answers to that. So I think the star rating that we strive for is like a 4.7, 4.8, somewhere in there is where we're comfortable being. Again, I think, Mason, to your point, like a 5-star, if you have 200 and some reviews and you have 5 stars, it looks to me like you're fake, right? Like this isn't, there has to be someone that, even rated you a 4-star, right? To drop you down. So if you have that, 5 stars with that many reviews, that to me, and I could just be because I'm in it though too, but I think to most people it screams like these are your friends and family leaving you reviews, right? Uh, but I think for like a new facility, we're trying to achieve 30% for all of our facilities. To be honest with you, we're trying to achieve that every month they get at least 20% of their rentals leave reviews. So that's for every 10 move-ins they get, 2 of them leave reviews. And we have a lot of facilities that are over that. We have some that are in the 60% ranges. We have, some that are not quite at that 20%, but really that's the goal for any facility, regardless of what stage they're at, because we still want to continuously get those reviews. If you get one bad review, it takes like 20 to 30 reviews, right, to make up that 0.5 star rating. And one of the other factors too is, as we know, is Google looks at recency of reviews as well. So you want to continuously get them. It's not something that you want to just get when you first open the facility or when you first acquired the facility to change it. It's something that should be ongoing and a goal for each facility.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to understand how like the Google algorithm is rewarding that stuff, and I think to a point that you just made is making sure that you have all the tools and avenues for customers to easily do that, whether that be the QR code, whether that be your drip campaigns on move-in, but even more importantly, like your team members that are on the ground, like incentivized to ask for them appropriately, right? Like, hey, I think a lot of the reviews that we see come in like specifically mention somebody at the store helping them, right? Which is amazing. That's what you want. There's personality there. There's your brand, all that kind of stuff. It puts like an actual human face and human person to that brand, which people can relate to.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like on our internal, we use Teams, like Slack. And so a lot of times it's really cool. Like the district managers will give shout outs and say, oh, there was a name recognition review, and everyone's excited and cheering, especially when they see their name in a review that they help the customer. So that's super important. And then, when I'm visiting the store, I can be like, oh, especially, at the number of locations we're at, I have not quite met anyone, but I know a lot about them just from reading their reviews, right? And I can tell that they want to help the customer and they want to be there.
That's awesome. So moving on to a topic that is, I feel like highly, very often talked about is AI. And I'm curious to pick your brain on this topic. AI is all the rage right now. I was also reading through a recent survey by LinkedIn's Workforce Confidence. It's called Workforce Confidence Survey, where they saw that for the most part, inside of business, the roles that are most impacted by AI are using AI today are product managers, marketers, consultants, and engineers, using them daily or weekly. So I'm just curious from your standpoint and your team's standpoint, how are you guys thinking of integrating AI, that being tools or whatever that is, into SAM's strategy, and where do you see it going?
Yeah, we've been using AI for a few years now in our a few ways. So to nerd back out on the reviews, we use AI to analyze the reviews, and we're able to pick up patterns. So one that is really interesting is we're able to see the amount of reviews that mention price or rate, and then we give that information to the revenue management team, and we're tracking the trends of that. So while you can track like move outs from ECRIs and those kind of things, one of the things that we're really focusing on and watching right now is like if there's bad reviews around our ECRI, so our existing customer rent increases. So if we start to see, even though we might not see move outs because it's really hard to go and get your stuff and move it to another facility, but what might be the sort of the fallout is bad reviews, right? And so as we talked about, it takes so many positive reviews to get one. So that's something that we're using AI to track those trends. And then if we look at a store and it's struggling, we can analyze all of their reviews using AI and, maybe pinpoint something that we've never thought of. You know, is the phone going unanswered? For instance, that's a review we get a lot around customer service and those kind of things. I think one of the earliest examples that I ever talked about was we had a negative review that this person didn't know how to pay her bill online, and she was very frustrated that she could only pay it on the phone. And so that was simple training then for the store manager to be like, to show them, and something that we actually put in place where it's now part of the sales presentation where they set up the online account for them in some cases as well. So there's pieces with that. The other place that we've been using it for a few years now is around content. So when we look at the number of facilities we have and the amount of content we have to do, and Google doesn't like duplicate content, but storage is storage, and there's so much content you can write around it. So you can use AI to take your idea and rewrite it however many different ways you need across the different websites. And so we're able to produce content at a much faster pace than we were before. So again, really looking for our SEO to improve because of that. It turns our content writers into editors then as well. So that's like just something to be aware of. If you have a really good content writer, they can still write the first one and then ask AI to regenerate it. But one of the skills I think that you need then with AI is to become an editor for that. And then on the basic levels with my other teams, with the sales and the transitions team, the onboarding teams, a lot of what they're using it for is, for meetings, and then using AI, turn it on meetings. And then at the end, they can ask AI what the actionable pieces were from there and be able to send that out very quickly and have that taken in so that they're focused on the meeting. They don't have to take notes as well. So that's been helpful.
Yeah, Mason and I were actually just nerding out on a tool that he was showing me today, where it's taking notes and all that and the highlights, and you can even go as far as going to that specific note and it will like change the timestamp of the video to show you where exactly in the conversation.
Yeah,
so it's really cool to really expedite that learning. So I'm curious, as a follow-up there, like how are you and your team, like how are you making sure everyone's kind of staying on top of all these different tools and new things that are coming out?
Yeah, so the marketing team, again, like the same piece is like we're looking at what other brands outside of storage are doing, how we can implement it, staying on top of, the different marketing blogs and avenues and Reddits and those kind of things as well. And then just looking at it from a productivity standpoint. So at SAM, we actually have like an AI committee. And so we've nominated people from all across the company in different departments, and they're really tasked and looking at which AI tools we should incorporate company-wide, what makes sense and what doesn't. So it is something definitely that we're focusing on, not just in the marketing department and for meetings, that my teams are on, but across the company as well. How can we utilize AI in different ways to make everyone more productive?
Awesome. Mason, anything else before we dive into the last little bit?
No, I could sit there and talk about this stuff for way too long. So I'm gonna mind my P's and Q's and not talk about any more spoons today.
Well, I feel like Mason's like the AI like godfather, right? So like me talking about AI is not doing anything justice.
No, it's great. I mean, obviously we like focus on specific types of language models at Swivel, and so even like the note thing that Rodolfo and I were looking at earlier today, it's like interesting to see those other use cases. Because to a point that we were talking about earlier, it's like I think innovation comes from like seeing use cases that are not directly related to what you're actually trying to do and figuring out how does that actually affect those things, right? And so, we're talking about, okay, well, like those note-taking apps, that's a really cool. Like, obviously, in a contact center, that like having some summarizations is really cool. But like, can you do active coaching in the middle of this thing, right? And so, I think there's just like some really cool insights that come from exploring the use cases of AI, and we're in such a golden age with it right now, where every 3 weeks there's something new happening, And that's just like really, really fun. It's such like a kid in the candy store, playing in a sandbox that like never ends.
It's been really cool. I mean, because there's now, we're looking at AI for revenue management and those kind of things, and there's just so many things that you can do with it. And as more and more people become comfortable with it, I think that'll also be helpful.
Yeah, no, I mean, it goes back to like the branding piece of the puzzle. A lot of this right now is like in an educational state, right? I think we all get to play with ChatGPT or have played with ChatGPT, and like it's magical and it's really cool from what I consider like parlor tricks, like showing somebody at the bar this thing. But then like there's still this like big gap between that parlor trick and like a meeting business use case, right? And how do you implement that appropriately so that you're not giving this large language model access to your entire reputation management system or your entire customer database. And so like when somebody that is half tech savvy or has negative intentions, they're no longer like breaking in after dark to the facility. They're coming in through your website to get it, so it's just a really interesting time around like trying to make sure people understand what's happening and the appropriate way to go implement that so that, we can all take advantage of this to better not only our lives as operators and vendors, but also like the customers that we're trying to serve every single day.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's like really exciting, right? You hear AI and you like want to be part of it. And you're like, oh, this could like automate everything. But then you're like, wait a minute, like, is this really the best use of it? What are you, there's cons to everything. So what are you giving up to be able to use this piece? So I agree. Like there's pros and cons and you got to weigh them and understand where it really does fit in your business model.
All right, Rodolfo, I appreciate you letting me nerd out for half a second.
Yeah, I had to. I needed to make sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
Did we use your favorite word yet, Rodolfo?
Oh, you know what?
I've been waiting for it. There's been so many opportunities.
I know. I mean, this conversation could have gone so many different directions, Melissa. Like, there's even things on my notes that I was like, I'm not going to ask because it's just going to take us to a whole other place. So I think we might need to do this again.
But you gotta disclose what the favorite word is.
Sure. Well, we joke around internally because we always think about like different touch points with customers and how do we keep expanding our own our way that
the anticipation continues to grow.
I know. I need to set it up, right? And so we have a QR code product, right, to try to get folks on the physical side of things, physical locations into a digital channel. And so internally I joke around that is our phygital channel, and I'm trying to make that a thing. So I am betting by next year I'm going to hear Melissa on stage and she will drop
the phygital term. I like it.
Phygital, yeah. Cool. Melissa, where can people find you online? Not
you can find me on LinkedIn. Just
visually too, if you want. I don't know.
Yeah, Rodolfo, you need to look up Blake Morgan. She talks about that like digital and experience. Like she talks about customer experience. She's a big evangelist for customer experience
on TikTok.
And she talks about that. No, she has a book. Okay, you can. But and she's LinkedIn. She goes live a lot too. But she talks about that mixing of the spaces. Nice. So you would find that interesting. And you can tell her that she should start using your word and you should trademark it first.
Yeah.
But no, you can just find me on LinkedIn.
Cool.
Thank you so much,
Thanks
Melissa.
so much. Yeah. I think that's the pod.
It was awesome.
It was. All right, guys, remember to go on and subscribe, listen to our other episodes pretty easily on the podcast channel of your choice or platform of your choice. You can also go to selfstoragelab.com and you can find them there. And remember to go visit Melissa. You can probably see her on LinkedIn and at any trade show event because she's always speaking. She always gets selected and she does a wonderful job of diving deep. So thanks again for listening.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on.